Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from AlexMercedCoder.dev, and I spent pretty much all day yesterday working on the CoquitoJS CLI, and I wouldn't say it's done. I'm planning to add a lot more commands and scaffolding to it, but what it can do now is pretty cool, in my humble opinion. Okay, so basically the CoquitoJS comes into sort of two layers. There's the underlying framework, which is really like this class Coquito app that's going to basically handle a lot of the boilerplate when you're creating an Express app. Okay, so I showed this in the previous introduction video, but basically, it'll just kind of set up routers for me. It can pretty much automate the creation of a GraphQL and RPC API right out of the gate with a simple setting. Okay, and there's a template you can clone. That's one way to get started with it. But to make life a lot easier and also a lot more flexible, okay, because like this template, it basically just gives you everything. So it gives you like EJS views, GraphQL, RPC. You may not need all of that. Okay, you may only need certain pieces. You might want a different view engine. You may want to use Mongo or SQL. So in the CAI, there's a scaffold command that allow you to tailor the project that you want. Okay, so let's just talk about that. So essentially, first thing you do is you'd install the CLI. So that'd be just like, I have to do sudo whenever I do a global install because I'm on Linux, but the main command would be npm install -g for global because you want to install CLI software globally when you're using Node. So G, and then you would just type in Coquito CLI. Okay. Type in the sudo password. And there. I'm all updated and installed. Okay, so essentially what I can do, there's a couple things I can do. I could actually just clone the template. So I do have a command there that will clone the template, and you can just do, just do Coquito new project, and then you put in the name of the project. So my new project. Okay. And new basic project is the command. New basic project, because it's using the basic template. So let me just change that command. New basic project. And see, basically what's going to do is just going to clone the project. And actually right now I'm in the sample folder, so it cloned it in here. So see there in my new project. I'm just going to delete that. And you have a project ready to go. So you could do that. Okay, if you just kind of want to have everything out of the gate and you don't want to deal with the scaffolding steps I'm about to go through, you could just literally start that new basic project and then off to the races. But I think you're going to like how the scaffolding works. So essentially, let me create a new folder for a new app. So we're going to say my app 2, and then I'm going to cd into that folder. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new file called scaffold.js, or actually .json. Okay, and essentially what we're going to do here is you can just basically give some blueprint for what the app you want. So like literally here, you can just copy and paste this from the documentation on npm. Just paste that in there, and I can choose between like, hey, do I want a GraphQL API? And I can choose true or false. If it's false, it won't include it. If it's a true, it'll be all set up for me. So I'm going to say true. Do I want an RPC API? Sure, true. Okay. Do I want to have any routers to begin with? So let's say I want a /dog router. Okay, so /dog and a /cat router. Okay. I'm going to definitely want the body parsers because I'm going to be planning to parse like JSON and URL encoded bodies. So generally that should always be true. Okay. I'm going to want to, let's say, use, if I don't want to use a Vue library, like I just plan on making an API and I'll just use like React or Vue spell something, I can just make this false. But I can also choose from one of many different templating libraries. The list is in the documentation, but I can do something like, like Nunjux. Okay, and it'll be ready to go. Okay. I can choose sort of my default port, what I want my host to be, localhost 0.0.0. Like usually I would probably want 0.0.0.0 if I want to put this in a Docker container, okay, because it needs to be visible outside of the container. Okay, then this package section, and then if I want a static folder, it's false if I don't want like a static server. Then if not, I give it a folder name if I do. Okay. And then what it'll do is it will create a folder by that name, and that's where my static, and that'll be configured to be a static server. So I'm not committed to the public folder. I could make a static folder, whatever you want that to call that static folder. I just give it the name, and it'll make that. I put false if I just don't want Okay, and then here I just put in like package. It's just going to help populate your package.json. Okay, and then here SQLite3, I could do Mongo, I can do SQL and then put in what database I want. So it would be like PG for Postgres, or Oracle DB if I'm using Oracle, capital MSSQL if you're using Microsoft SQL. Again, the list is in the documentation, but you would just do SQL dash whatever the database you're using if you're using SQL. Okay, so once I kind of have that all specified, then what I can do is I can run scaffold, or actually Coquito scaffold, and watch what happens. Oh, what happened there? Journal. JSON. Oh, am I CD in the? I'm not CD into the folder. That's why. CD into my app2. Where am I? Oh, I'm still in the sample folder. CD into my app2. Let me clear the thingy, and let's run Coquito scaffold. Okay, you see like it's just scaffolding everything out. Okay, it's building now. It's installing all the dependencies, so you can see what steps it's doing. Okay, downloading database libraries. Okay, and there you go. Everything is all nice and set up. Okay, so if I go to my server.js, like everything's all set up for my everything. So see, like Nunjux is set up. Um, you know, a lot of stuff is kind of set up in the server config.json, which is right over here. Okay, so such as like what my routers are going to be and ports. So I can change that there, so that way I don't have to keep digging around the server.js. If I need to add any additional middleware, I can just add it to this array. Okay, this pre-hook is just right over here. This pre-hook definition here. That's just kind of, I use that to just kind of set up the templating engine. There's cores is set up. Everything is set up. Okay, the RPC is set up. Everything is set up. See, there are my two routers. And then if I go into my routers folder, where is my routers folder? Controllers. See, there's my cat and dog router, all nice and ready to go. I can just start writing routes in them. Okay, there, see, here's my connection.js with all the data for me to connect. All I have to do is just define the database URL. Okay, here's all my GraphQL stuff. Okay, it's pretty much all ready to go. There's my public folder, my folder for the stuff for my RPC API, my views folder with just an initial index.nunjux. Okay, and again, you can mix and match. So I can say, hey, I want RPC, but I want to use Pug, but not GraphQL. Basically, whatever you want to put, you just put it in your scaffold.json. Then you run Coquito scaffold in that same folder, and it will build out the project for you, and you are off to the races. And it should be working. And it has, like, if I go to the package.json, okay, you see, like, it already has the type module. Okay, it's already been populated with like the properties that we put in that package property. So you see, like, AlexMerced, you know, email. I already have my scripts in there, so I can just do node. So if I want to just run kind of like a nodemon type thing, I can use that new watch feature. So this does require you to have, like, this whole thing uses a lot of like newer node stuff. So you do want to have like node 18 plus. But I can just write like npm run dev. Okay, and see it's watching that folder. Okay, and if I go to localhost 444 in this example, it's working. Okay, and if I were to go to /GraphQL, okay, that's working. If I were to go to /RPC, that's working. Okay, so yeah, okay, so you can really kind of scaffold out what you need, and I'm going to be adding more details to scaffolding. Like I want to add like the ability to kind of specify auth, like whether you want session based auth, JWT based auth, and then what it'll do is it won't scaffold out the routes, but instead give you the functions you would need, so that way you can, if you want to use those functions for GraphQL, RPC, or REST, you can then just use those functions in the paradigm that you want, and you're good to go. So that's going to be sort of the next big thing I'm going to add. But again, none of these future editions should affect the previous edition, so you should be ready to just go and build. Again, there are two different libraries, so Coquito CLI and then the Coquito library. I think the Coquito-based sort of framework library is good. I don't think there's any additional things. I did add one more hook for custom code, but aside from that, pretty much you should be good to go. But I mean, the combination of these two tools just makes scaffolding out an app with a lot of stuff sort of set up in a good organized way very, very easy. As you see here, like this video is what, 10 minutes? And technically we went from 0 to having an RPC GraphQL API with, you know, with SQLize all nice and configured. Okay, and then the cool thing is you have other commands in there for adding incremental stuff. So like, let's say you didn't add a database to begin with. I could go back and add a database by doing like Coquito add SQL. Okay, and then I would say, hey, what database I want? So I would say like SQLite3, and then that'll go back and configure it. It'll actually add the files you need and install the libraries. Or I could just do add Mongo, Coquito add Mongo, and that'll set up install Mongoose and create your connection file. After I do that, I can, if I want to add a model, so like in this case, I would add Mongo model if it was Mongo. In this case, I did SQL route, so it would be add SQL model, and we'll just say dog. Okay, and then I want to do the same thing for cat. And then if I head over to my models folder, there's my dog and cat models. And basically all I have to do is just fill in the schema. And then I can, it's already exported, and I can just start using it in my controllers. Okay. And let's say I want to do REST routes. So let's say I don't want to use these controller files for cat and dog. I'm like, screw this. I will use a different one. So I'm going to delete those. There's another command here, Coquito add REST routes for dog. Then I'll do the same thing for cat. And now I still have like, see, I have my cat, and actually it should be my controllers, cat and dog. I click on it, and see it's already scoped out for like all the different REST routes. So all I have to do is now just build out. I can then import my controller, and all I have to do is just go back to my server.js and then just reconfigure this so it uses my cat REST router. So it'll be like cat REST router, cat REST router, and then I just have to make sure I import them. Import cat REST router. Just make sure I'm giving it the right name. Yeah, CastRet routes. Okay. So basically I would import cat REST routes from .controllers/cat.js. Actually, I mean, technically this would still work because technically it's a default export and the file is the same name. So by swapping out the file, that should still technically work. So I don't even have to do that. Okay. And I mean, this should all work. Let me just confirm that that's the case. Yeah, these are export defaults by the same name in the same place. So yeah, this would all be just sort of working right out of the gate. Okay, and now I can just write my REST routes. I have a nice controller file that just kind of defines my REST routes nice and easy. So look at that, how nice. I just fill those in by importing the model that I have over here. I just got to fill in the schema. And yeah, I'm already pretty much all the way there. And then again, I just have to make sure in the .env I define database URL and port if I want to. Okay, so that's the power of like Coquito. Again, the core library made spinning up a lot of like automating a lot of things really easier. Just kind of created a lot of logic and configuring a lot of things out of that initial constructor. And then the CLI takes that a step further in coordinating a lot of that automation with file generation, making this cool. And again, we're just going to keep adding more. Okay, and then again, it's an open source project, so feel free if you want to make a pull request. I definitely will not discourage that because that's always cool to add more stuff to it. But yeah, I'm pretty happy where this is going. I'm going to keep building on it and creating videos to show you how to use it. So sweet.